welcome to the Chefpreneur podcast. I'm your host, Andre Cienhost. I'm excited to bring this podcast to you guys. It's been a minute since we've had a podcast, and I'm really excited. We're going to start doing some interviewing with chefs and different professionals as well every single week. We're going to go live at 1 o'clock Eastern time. If you're listening or tuning in with on YouTube, obviously welcome. This is live, and we'll have the video of this as well up. And or you might be listening this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or anywhere that you get your podcast as well. You'll find this podcast. So we're really excited. Today we're going to be interviewing Chef Cinnamon and Chef Johnny from Culinary Indulgence in Dallas, Texas. I'm super excited. They are a couple of my protege students, and really wanted to start our podcast kickoff a little bit more with these two because they're amazing people. And I just think that you guys will be really inspired by their story. So without further ado, I'd like to bring up Chef Cinnamon and Chef Johnny and welcome them to the show. So, chefs, how are you guys doing today?
Hey, good afternoon. We're doing fantastic here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. It's a beautiful day, and I'm so happy for autumn.
Yes. Well, that's funny you mentioned autumn or fall, as you would say. Me and my wife were at our Bible study on Sunday night. We were doing the newlywed game, and it was pretty funny because, we've been married 20 years. It's not like we're newlyweds. And one of the questions was, what is your wife's favorite season? And I'm like, it's fall. And she went a step further and she's like, well, I love Christmas time and I know Christmas time. So I'm going to say winter, but I really love fall. And I think we lost because of that. We were like 5 points away from winning. So anyway,
Wow.
Kind of bittersweet. Yeah, bittersweet. But thank you guys for joining me on the podcast today. By the way, I have a couple screens here. So as I'm looking in different directions, just looking at maybe, some of your information as well and just some things. So really excited. So the first thing I want to just ask you guys is, first of all, really give us just a bit of your background, Chef Cinnamon, and both of you. Just really in the culinary industry for everyone that, we just like to share your story.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. So, I've been cooking since I was little, like at 7, I can remember, let's say helping mom in the kitchen. And that was really washing dishes. But it was fun, and she always let me be around her. So a lot of stuff I just learned from watching her do. I didn't know it was my passion at the time. And I remember in my late 20s thinking, man, I wish I could get paid for cooking for people. And just never believed that I could do that. That people would pay for my cooking, even though they loved it. So I just ended up feeding people for free. And in about 2015, I was going through a leadership program, and it really taught us to, not dream big, but to ask big and to be big. And I'm like, you know what? This year I am going to make money. That very same day, I was in Chicago at this leadership conference. I get a call, and it's like, Cinnamon, didn't you say that you're into catering? Can you cater for about 60 people for lunch and then dinner and then lunch the next day? And I said, yes. And that's really where it started taking off, where I'm like, yeah, I can do this. I didn't have the confidence to ask for a lot of money, so I might as well have been given away free. But that's what I started in a tiny little kitchen, and they didn't even have a full kitchen, didn't know what I was doing. But it gave me the confidence, and people loved the food. They were just, literally eating it up, and they loved it. So fast forward, I just never quit working at a 9 to 5 because my money and benefits and everything. And I would get personal chef clients, parties here and there, and meal prep clients here and there, but it definitely wasn't enough to do this on my own. And I get praying. I'm like, God, would you ever just let me use this dream to be able to take care of myself, my family, and other people? And, I talked to this guy who is like the supreme coach and mentor, and I talked to him for about 3 years, and then finally signed on to to mentor with him. And that was in April of this year. And man, we had one meal prep client, and now we have 5 regular meal prep clients, and
Wow.
then we have at least 2 parties a month. And October's already filling up with the parties too. So, oh, and we haven't been working. This is what we do for a living now. Yeah.
Nice.
So I know. So everybody get a mentor, the best.
Well, awesome. Well, I appreciate that. Tell me a little bit about Chef. I really want to kind of dive in because I remember, well, yes, it was like the mentor you're talking about, I believe, is me, correct?
It's absolutely you.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure. No, I'm just joking. Well, I appreciate that. It's very flattering and I'm very honored and humbled. But tell me a little bit about what some of the biggest struggles you were facing, not really just, I mean, just in general, not necessarily maybe in the business per se, but also just kind of just some of the challenges you were facing the last 10, 15 years. I know it's been kind of a long journey for you, and I want to kind of open up on that a little bit more because, a big reason of why we're doing these podcasts and why I'm really wanting to set up a lot of interviews with chefs is really to encourage each other, inspire each other, really, getting people to understand that, that we all go through challenges, we all face obstacles. And one of the biggest things I've noticed is just really people just need to hear from people that were possibly in their shoes and also just kind of what some of your struggles were. So what were some of like, maybe on the personal side, what were some of the struggles you faced that kind of affected not only your work life, but, even you starting a business?
That's a good question. I was married to a different man at the time when I was really, people were coming to me saying, "Hey, will you cook for me?" And he constantly told me, "You can't make any money doing that." And
Mm,
I would see catering trucks and buildings, and I'm like, well, somebody's got to be making some money doing it. And I would get online and see how much they charged, and I'm like, whoa, somebody's really making money at this. And so one of them was just some of the people around me were very negative about it, and they're like, yeah, you're a good
mm,
cook, but you're never going to really be able to make sustainable money out of that. And I believed them. That was
mm,
my biggest thing. So that was a big obstacle. And then whenever I did start going out and, talking to people and let's just say try to drum up business, I was so scared to ask them for money that I was attracting people that didn't want to pay money. And, they would get offended when I'm like, $15 for a family meal. And they're like, $15?
oh my Lord.
And so I didn't, that that kept me from asking. I got tired of
Yeah.
asking because I knew that I couldn't even buy the raw ingredients for $15. Um, those were two of the big things: having negative people around me, and then not really knowing my worth. I mean, now and for the longest, even when I met you, the clients that I did have, I was charging them a set fee, and the groceries were included. And man, like I had this one client for about 3 months, and grocery prices went up 30%.
Oh yeah.
And she was my lowest paying client. I think she's paying me $150 a week, and she was vegan and keto and gluten free. And so I was being very creative, and but yeah, it was just I didn't think anybody was going to pay me what I was worth plus the cost of groceries. And now all but one of my clients, who I grandfathered him in because he's been with me for 2 years, but all
Mhm.
of them happily pay for groceries. Like they just happily do it.
Yeah.
So,
That's
yeah.
awesome. That's awesome. So it sounds like, again, you were struggling with different aspects of even your relationship at the time, and really just felt like it even held you back. And so it sounded like there was a lack of support, I guess you would say, right? A lack of support for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. And that's something that, I think it's challenging for a lot of people. Community and support is something honestly as vital as anything else. I mean, learning the skill set, learning things like that, it's really important, yes, but it's much more important to have the support by you. And kind of going back to, again, I want to really dive in and make sure that we're telling your story, but I have to say that I relate to that, in the sense of, not that I didn't have the support, but that I do. My wife has been the most supportive, spouse I could ever ask for or dream of. And, in fact, that same Bible study we were doing, the newlywed game, a couple of weeks ago, when we went for the first time as a great couple at our church, we were talking, and he's an ex-CEO. He just retired in April. He's been a CEO of, in kind of the broadband internet space for a long time. Long story short, he was really they just kept digging in on that. Like, Chef, you have no idea that your wife supporting you in this way is more crucial than probably anything else that you're going through. Like, just having her as that pillar and having each other is crucial. And so I can't even imagine, what you went through in that support. I mean, I'd like to kind of have you introduced to the person next to you now, your husband, right? So tell us a little about who's this handsome guy next to you.
I know. Well, just to let you know that we just had our 5 year
5 year.
wedding
Yeah.
anniversary
That's
on the
Friday.
20th. So
Yes.
yeah, 5 years strong. And he's the opposite of my ex-husband. So he's been supportive of me through everything. And in fact, I think he proposes at least 2 or 3 times a week more, because he'll be eating my food. He's like, will you marry me? Because that's how much he likes it. And then just like yesterday, I made this phenomenal gumbo, and he goes, this is marry me gumbo.
Yes.
So going from not only negative support, but you can't do this too, man, let's go do more of this.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And he's been extremely supportive. He is my sous chef. We get to work every day in the kitchen, and we have so much fun dancing around and cooking. And I think that's one of the reasons why our food tastes so good, is because all that love is going in there.
All that love is going around. Absolutely.
Yeah. So Chef Johnny, mwah.
Hey y'all. So I didn't start off as a chef. I mean, I was an illustrator for a little bit after college.
Okay.
And I worked in the video game industry for Sony. I was working for that for 15 years. And I ended up here in Texas in 2014. Started bartending, kind of like trying to find a new career. And then finally got into the kitchen, which I was so curious to actually, start cooking. As a kid, I would make over easy eggs, and I would perfect that. But that's the only thing.
There's actually still a lot of chefs that don't know how to cook that, so I'm actually pretty impressed with that.
Thank you, Chef. And that's how I started, just cooking that, over easy egg and just getting it most perfect every time. But not until I met Chef Cinnamon that we started collaborating, and I became her sous chef, and I worked for like a Spanish tapas restaurants, and I just learned a lot of the prep there. But I really grew when I met Chef Cinnamon, and we started working together and doing events and supporting all her different parties and ventures. So this is it. We've been here since we met like 6.5 years ago, and the business is going strong. And finally, we signed up with you, Chef, through Chefpreneur, and it's been a great ride, and it's continued to inspire us, and all your mentorship. It's really a great addition to our business. So.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. So again, it's just interesting to me, again, as we dive in a little bit more, of just the contrast and the difference between kind of where you guys are both at to now. I think that that's also really, I hope it's inspiring anybody who's listening to this, because we have many chefs that have come from not really like culinary school or from the professional background. We actually have that more often than not. I actually think it's about 50-50 if not even maybe edges a little bit more on the kind of quote unquote non-professional chef, as you would call it. I think that's one of the things that you know you struggle with at times is confidence, right? Is confidence, and it kind of go hand in hand with some insecurities. I don't want to disclose and speak for you guys, but I know when I started talking to you, Chef Cinnamon, and even as we've been kind of mentoring and coaching and getting you guys your business where it needs to be, tell me a little bit about some of the struggles that you've had, in both of you really, with maybe confidence issues or insecurities of some sort. Just, I don't know if you're like to maybe be vulnerable and open up about that. I think, again, people need to hear these things because we all go through it, and we all go through not only challenges, but I think more importantly, sometimes mental struggles. And honestly, that is what really debilitates us even more so than anything else that I see. So are you open to sharing a little bit about maybe some of those aspects of the challenges you faced?
Absolutely. I know some things are unique, but a lot of people that I come in contact with, it seems like we all have common things that we get scared of. And I know that when I wanted to start going around and finding strategic partners, I just didn't want to do it. I didn't want to go in and talk to people. But me and Chef Johnny, we made some little, I call them lunch pails, but they were just like little lunches, and put them in little lunch bags and took them around to what could be strategic partners. And I was scared, and I went in there, and everybody that we talked to were so delighted. And, like some chiropractors and other doctors and stuff like that, they were so excited to see me. They wanted to talk with me. They end up buying lunch, catering lunches for their office. And it was just, I was so stuck that for months after signing up for that program, it's because you have many programs in the Chefpreneur enterprise there, and just sort of signing up that program, I didn't do it forever because I was afraid. And what's so funny is Chef Johnny said, he said, "You didn't look afraid at all." And so it was just getting out there and doing it. And I just doubted myself, and I knew that people weren't going to want it or say no. And, I listened to you, and it gave me business. And another thing that I was really intimidated by is I would hear some other chefs, even that you have mentored, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I cooked for this family. They flew me to their vacation spot, and after dinner they invited me out to go fishing with them." And I got really intimidated because I'm like, I want to do that too, but I don't feel like I'm like camaraderie enough or fun enough with the clients. I'm just there to give them the best freaking meal and experience possible. And so when I hear stuff like that about, the clients just really taking them on, you're just part of the family. And I remember calling you like, "Oh, I want to be like that. I don't have confidence to be like that." And so, yeah, my confidence probably is the one that wavers, and it wavers on a regular basis. And that's why I think that having mentorship, number one, is important. Have an environment of community around you is important. And then to always be learning every single day. And it's my responsibility ultimately to get that confidence back up there. And I can waller in it, or I can get busy and make money. So I think that's my biggest thing is confidence.
Yeah, that's beautifully said, Chef. I mean, that's really inspirational, I think, to a lot of people, and including myself. I think, listen, I've dealt with discouragement. I've dealt with insecurities. I think we all have to different degrees, of course. But I like what you said at the end there. Like, there's Billy Jean. Shout out to Billy Jean from Billy Jean is Marketing. When I started working with him, he's a huge online marketer. Look him up. He's everywhere. When you walk in his office, there's this big, in the back wall, it's this, he has different like sayings on the wall, entrepreneur type sayings. And one of them is a big gorilla, and it says like closed mouths don't get fed. That's one. And then there's another one that he has, and it's this massive statement. It says, "Don't make excuses, make it happen." Right. And I tell my kids sometimes, I said, don't be sorry, be different, right? So I think that it's a constant thing as we're really diving into our business to really make sure that we have someone in our corner, that we have someone supporting us, but also someone who's lending that word of encouragement. And also, it's not that we can ignore these insecurities, as you were kind of saying, like you're going to have those and you have to do things in spite of them. I think that's the key, is you have to actually take action in spite of them. Now, I can sit here and reprimand you a little bit on, you not taking action when you knew that you had to do what you had to do for so long.
Yeah.
But really that's, even the Bible says, right, faith without works is dead. You can say all day, well, I believe in God, I have faith in my heavenly Father, but without actually putting your faith in action and actually acting upon what you're truly believing in and what you have faith in, meaning that God is going to provide, God is going to continue to bless, God is going to, he got me, he's with me. Unless you take moves that way, you're never really going to get any kind of results, and you're never going to get in a forward motion, right? And I think that's really important for people to, again, understand that it's not going to be all daisies and butterflies all the time, right? Especially between your 2 ears. I think it's a huge thing that, you talk about all the time when we do our mentorship calls. And I think that's beautifully said how you said it. It's like some of the actual specific struggles that you were facing, the insecurities with clients, which again, we deal with this a lot with a lot of chefs. I actually just wrote an email today to our list talking about how, we're always, when we're in a 9 to 5 job, we're always complaining about how they're underappreciating us, underpaying us, they're not valuing us, right? And then we get into our own businesses, and then it's like a deer in headlights when I'm coaching a chef and I'm like, you're charging way too little. I'm like, oh my gosh, but I feel uncomfortable. Like, oh my gosh. And I'm thinking, you just got done telling me 3 months ago when we were talking about you getting help from us that, you're underappreciated and underpaid where you're at. And it's like, where'd that confidence go? Right. It's funny how putting things into perspective about that is really important. You said something as well about being responsible and kind of looking at your own success. Um, I say it and I preach it to everyone, right, about accountability and responsibility, and that the success for your business and for you guys, even personally, anybody who's listening to this or watching this, like, it's 100% on you. People that are in your corner, that are helping you, that are guiding you, that are educating you, that are mentoring or coaching you. Yes, we're there in the driver's seat with you, but you're behind the driver's wheel, right? You're in the driver's seat. I want to kind of just ask that question to you. Like, do you feel like that has been sometimes a challenge for you when you have been doing, and I know the answer to this because, again, I don't want to disclose it. I want to hear from you because, but you know, when we started working together, I think more specifically, because I can't speak to necessarily some of your thoughts in the gap, from when we kind of first talked and then when you kind of got our, receive our true kind of mentorship, was there ever a time where you wanted to play the blame game? And if you're honest, on something else or someone else, as opposed to saying, what am I doing wrong? What do I need to adjust? Can you give us an example of that if you're able to admit that, if that's something that you went through?
Yeah, I mean, I love thinking that I'm self-aware, but it's a progress that I have to work through every day. But I'm trying to think of something specifically that I shared with you because we've shared so many things. But I could bring it back to that other relationship that I had. Um, just believing. I just really believed that I could make money. Being at that time, I didn't know the difference between a personal chef, a private chef, a caterer, any of those things. So I was just looking at catering. I called it all the same, and just really believing it because somebody told me that all over. So yeah, I blamed him for a long time for not letting me do my passion and really
Mm-hmm.
go with that. And I still kept trying. but
Yeah.
there was domestic violence going on because of it, because he hated me doing it. And I really love it, and I blame that for not being able to. I mean, and if I look at it right now, it's still not gone, because I look at the
Mm.
success I've had with Johnny, and even some of my closest friends, they're like, Cinnamon, your cooking was always good, but it's amazing now. And so I'm like, yeah, it's because I got this guy that just, I feel good. I feel uplifted. I feel supported. And so for sure, that's probably one of the biggest ones is, blaming somebody because they said mean things to me. So I
Yeah.
couldn't do it.
Well, to be fair with you, and that was the example I was actually looking for that you really disclosed to me, because since I've known you, you really haven't been necessarily an excuse maker, right? And we want to clarify that a lot of people actually go through things in life where it is out of our control, 100%. We can't control, obviously, everything. There is going to be things that are going to happen to us that are out of our hands, out of our control. I was just telling this to somebody the other day. Like, you stopped at a stoplight and you're just sitting there like a good citizen. Like, there's maybe a car in front of you that's right at the line, and you're sitting there, and someone just comes up and sideswipes you. I mean, that's not your fault. You were literally just at a stoplight, obeying traffic laws. Okay. So, like, it's out of your hands. But I think the biggest takeaway there was, how are you going to react? How are you reacting to that? Right? Are you going to carry that? And so again, we're not wanting this to be a session about, speaking, mal towards your ex spouse, but the things that were implemented on you, obviously there was things where you were still trying, you weren't letting it stop you from actually taking action on things. However, it was affecting how you were affected by how you were reacting to it mentally. And there's still some of that residue in there. And again, it takes time. This is why I think it's really important for people to understand it takes time. It takes time to sometimes heal from these things, obviously, that are happening to us. But the faster we can get a grip mentally on it and start having, and sometimes it's just a different perspective, really having a different perspective on it, it made you stronger. It might have created a few more levels of ambition in you from having those tough times and those pains. And all in all, the Bible says, right, that God uses all things for our good, not just the good things, but all things, right? And so it doesn't mean that he was wanting that to happen, obviously, for there to be domestic violence in your situation, but he's going to take all that. He's going to take your test and become a testimony, right? And so that's a really great, I think that hopefully just inspires anybody listening to this, because that stuff really can really get in the crux and get in the cracks and really get to the root of some of the things that we face on a daily basis. And it's a lifetime to sometimes get over some of these things. But what's crazy is it all starts with one choice and one decision, right? Accepting whether you're going to continue to believe it and continue to allow it to affect you, or if we're going to move on and move forward. So thank you so much for sharing. So I kind of now want to turn it over to you guys. When we're kind of preparing the podcast and preparing the show, we like to ask you guys if there's any questions you want to ask me, for anybody, out there. And it's just an opportunity for you guys to ask me on any topics that you can think of. And because I want it to be kind of a two-way thing. Why I want to get to know you guys, of course, and I know you guys very well. Again, we've worked together now for a little bit here. So, but just for those people that are listening in, that are tuning in, that are hearing this, do you guys have any questions you want to ask me that I can be of service or help for you guys?
Yeah, there's two big ones, and I'm in a lot of Facebook forums and other personal chefs in all levels. They could be Michelin star chefs and just people cooking outside of their trailer or something, but
Yeah.
and everybody's looking for some insight. And I see one of the biggest questions or most asked questions is, what's the difference between a personal chef and a private chef? I know that now, but if you can clarify that, I
Hmm.
think that even chefs don't get that sometimes, the difference.
Okay, so the difference between a personal chef and a private chef, correct?
Yes.
So when you're looking at it, so it's a great question, and that is something that we get a lot, and even a lot of clients mistake the two. In a
Yes.
very simple term, and a very simple definition of it is a personal chef is someone who has usually a business or they're self-employed. They have a company and they're serving multiple clients. Basically, just like any other business, you're able to say yes or no to any client or customer that you have. A private chef predominantly is someone who's full time, usually like an employee type. So maybe it's a high end, individual. I've even had private chefs that I know that are working for like a very small company. It's usually someone who's on payroll, employee type of aspect as a private chef. Now, in the industry, the client as well will interchange and use both of these terms. So it's not that we want to call out our clients on like, well, I'm a personal chef, not a private chef. I mean, they're probably usually getting the gist because there is certain areas of the United States where it's still predominantly called private chefing. For instance, like New York City is one where it's a little bit more structured. There's been private chefs, there's quite a bit of full-time employed private chefs in New York City. I mean, there's quite a bit of wealth and a lot of those people have full-time chefs. So it's very easy and very common for them to use that term for kind of the whole thing. But that's really the biggest difference. If I can add something to that as kind of like a little bit of a coaching moment here, we try to look in Chefpreneur. We're always looking at not only trends, but really directions of where like companies in the US are going, as well as like not just kind of certain companies where they're going and where they're headed, but also where like trends and movements and industries are going. And the reason I'm kind of using companies, trends, and industries is because for so long, people that were able to hire a private chef, again, celebrities, professional athletes, there's actually quite a bit of process to find people like that. They usually don't just put up a job posting somewhere and just start interviewing people. It's usually their assistants interviewing for them, and then they're usually going to what they call domestic staffing agencies, right? So these are people that are specialized in equipping kind of like the right people to be quote unquote in the person's home privately. Sometimes it's for nannies, housekeepers, estate managers, and again, private chefs. So the reason I'm mentioning all this is because those kinds of companies, they charge mass amounts of commission and they kind of throw anything that sticks at the wall. I've talked to so many clients that are looking for private chefs. They'll come across our personal chef website, our personal chef company, Dinner with a Chef, and they'll reach out to us and like, okay, I know that you guys are more personal chefs, but like we're looking for a chef full time. But a lot of these domestic staffing agencies charge so much money. Sometimes it's upward of 25 to even 50% of a yearly salary. So if a chef is going to get paid 150,000, they might make something like 25 to 50K on the commission, which is insane. It's a lot of money. And so there's a lot of money wasted there and a lot of time. And here's what I'm going to say. I'm just setting some vision. I've actually coached a couple chefs doing this. If someone ever goes your way, just, kind of a big teaching moment here. If someone comes your way wanting a private chef, do not say, oh, I'm a personal chef, I can't help you. Say, well, actually, what if I were what if instead you didn't hire one individual, but you hired our company. So there's no contract in that sense. You don't have to pay employee benefits. We're going to send you an invoice. We're going to charge you per service per day. And again, you'll have to figure all that out again. But then you can maybe have multiple chefs that you manage and send to their house 3, 4, 5 times a week. They don't have to pay any upfront commissions, but you're going to elevate the price. The price is going to be more than what they would pay probably, again, an employee, but without all the hassle. So if they go to Italy for a month, they're not paying employee benefits. They're not continuing to pay a salary. And I've done this and I've coached this with several chefs. We've done it ourselves with some professional baseball athletes and things like that. And they love the concept where they can feel like they get service 3, 4 days a week. They pay the invoice, they pay a premium. But after the off season or when they go back to whatever city they're playing for as athletes, just as an example, that's it. They just come back into town and they kind of pick up where they left off. And so it's a long-winded answer, but I wanted to give you a little bit of even some additional teaching there, because I really think that, again, the trend is going towards more of personal chefing, of course, and there's still going to be people that are wanting a full-time chef. But if we change the industry, we can also use our personal chef businesses to even help those people that are wanting something more consistent by building out a team and rotating chefs to go to their house. And as an owner, you make good profitability off of sending a chef, and again, the customer benefits because they're like, well, I get a personal chef 3 days a week, and they rotate, or maybe it's the same chef or whatever, but there's no kind of like, employee attachment. So it's kind of helps everybody. And then the chef who's working for them also can say, hey, I'm not really, I'd rather work for another client. Okay. And then you put them somewhere else, or use them for private events, or use them from weekly meal prep, and then you plug in another chef. So just wanted to give a little teaching moment, a little long-winded answer for your question there.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. What's the other question?
All right. So, I'm educated in this field now, and I think that sometimes, you can get so good at what you do that you kind of can't relate to people that don't know as much as you. So just for example, I have, people, they see your chef, you're walking around doing stuff out in the public, and they're like, oh, did you bring samples? Or, just all that kind of stuff, but it's fine. But, so many people are interested. And I think that having a personal chef is a luxury. And I don't know how to get it across to people like what we really do without looking like a jerk. I think people don't realize how long it takes to plan a menu. I mean, some chefs it may not, but it takes a little while to plan a menu, and then to make the grocery list, to shop for the groceries, to prep, to cook, put them in the containers, stuff. It's a big process. Now, do I love every minute of it? I do.
I
But
love it.
I know a lot of people don't like that, or they don't have the time to do that. Now, my meal prep clients that I have, they do, whether it's for time or health reasons or both. They appreciate that, and they're willing to pay for that. But people that are just like, oh, I would love to have a private chef. Can you just give me a ballpark how much it would cost? Those kind of things. How do you be gracious and let them know that that this is a luxury service? It's not for everybody, and also you might be able to work with them.
Yeah, I think a great question, first of all. So to again repeat the question, the first question is, how do you get it across to say that it's a luxury service as a personal chef? For when people are like, hey, did you bring samples, or are you just some chef selling a product, right? Unfortunately, I don't think there's really a way that you can kindly say that. Not to say that you're saying it mean, but those probably aren't your ideal clientele. You know what I mean? If they're asking questions like that, the best thing to do is to state exactly what you do. Hey, we offer personalized experiences in the comfort of your home. Basically, the chef or the restaurant goes to you, however you want to word it, right? And I sometimes refrain from using the word restaurant, but again, it's just to get them to understand the concept. Because if you confuse someone, you'll lose someone, right? You'll just they're just lost. So you might say something like, we deliver personal chef experiences in the comfort of your own home. It's like having the restaurant and the chef come to you. And so if you were to go now, again, this is now getting into like answering it kind of part B here. If they said, oh, great, like, did you bring samples? It's like, no, we can't bring samples of our experience because it's a full experience that we prepare. And they're like, oh, is that inexpensive? Most people won't ask if that's inexpensive, right? They'll just kind of hint like they're cheap. But one of the things I've told my clients was, and this is probably not a good example to a degree, but it wasn't my client. And I was trying to explain to her very similar thing. Like, it's a personalized experience, because she was mentioning to me, she was on the phone with me, and she said, chef, like, And I went through the sales call and the sales process and everything that I teach. And again, you're just going to sometimes end up with having the not your ideal client or customer on the phone or inquiring about your service. I mean, it's just going to happen. So I was talking to her and she's like, okay, but if I go to Outback Steakhouse, is where she said literally, if I go to Outback Steakhouse, like for a steak and a salad, I'm going to pay maybe $40 a person. And I'm like, okay. I was like, no, I absolutely understand. So the first thing you want to do is empathize, number one, right? Like, hey, I understand what you're saying. Then the second thing, because you got to kind of sandwich method it, right? I always call it the sandwich method. A little squishy bun on the top, squishy bun on the bottom. But you got to give them that meat in the middle. Okay, you gotta give them the truth in the middle. So it's like, I understand completely what you're saying. You're right. If you would go to Outback Steakhouse, you can probably get a decent steak with a salad. I said, have you ever eaten at like a famous chef's restaurant? And she goes, yes. This is an actual real example. She says, I've eaten at Bobby Flay's Mesa I think it's called Mesa in Las Vegas. I said, okay, great. Perfect example. She goes, well, that was a little pricier, but he's kind of a celebrity chef, right? And I said, no, 100%. I said, yeah, I'm sure it wasn't cheap, right? It was definitely more expensive than Outback Steakhouse. I said, what would be more expensive? I just gave her a simple question to answer. What would be more expensive? For you to go to Mesa and eat Bobby Flay's food, or for Bobby Flay to show up to your house and make you dinner? Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, and it kind of clicked with her, right? And so after it clicked with her, it was kind of like, okay, okay. And I said, that's why we are a premium service and we come to you, but the experience is, believe it or not, she actually ended up booking with us. That lady, I remember her.
Way to
It was a
go,
long time
Chef.
ago. So I was able to still close the deal. But I just had to explain it that way. And again, the other bun there on the sandwich would be, as they got the aha moment, it could be, now we understand if this is not in your budget and this is not what you're looking for, completely understandable. You're empathizing with them. You know, what's funny is, and I've said this to you guys before, nobody gets upset when they walk into a Lamborghini or Rolls Royce dealership, someone who can't afford it. They just want to go in there, let's say, and just look at the beautiful, $500,000 cars. Nobody goes in there and says, oh my gosh, this Rolls Royce for $500,000, this is ridiculous, right? Like, no one does that, because you already know the brand. You already know you have the mentality like, okay, I already know I can't afford it. And I just kind of want to check them out because they're really cool machines, right? And so what's funny is that it's okay that someone cannot afford your services.
Yes.
It's not for everyone. Hey, they might get on a consultation with you and talk about your services, but they don't have to pull the trigger, right? And at the end of the day, you can at least just educate them and maybe even inspire them. Like, that sounds really good. We've actually had one other lady in my personal chef business who saved up. She was 23, proposing to her girlfriend, and very young. And she lived, and I'm not trying to be mean, she lived literally in a trailer court. And I remember her calling me and she goes, I'm going to save up for this. Or, I really want to break the question in December. And it was, I think, sometimes in summer. And she's like, that's pretty pricey. Because I said it's $400 plus groceries, because that's our minimum for 2 people, 4 courses. She literally saved up and called me back in September and put down the deposit and paid the event, tipped me $500 or $50, but proposed to her girlfriend in the whole 9 yards. So the whole thing about that is that even if you have that consultation, it might still inspire them to say, okay, I can't afford this now. Some people might say, oh, I can't afford that. Some people might say, I want to maybe have your number for that real special occasion, like the 40th birthday for my wife, or the, mom turning 75 or something. So that's to answer kind of both questions a little bit. It's like, it is a luxury service. We have to communicate that. And it's okay to communicate. And it's really easy to get off and feel a little bit bad. If somebody's asking for samples, that's just kind of funny. Like, it's as simple
I mean,
as
it's
like,
not that I mind that part. I mean,
yeah. It just, but I see what you're saying. So again, for people listening, it's like, I don't want to say like let them down. slowly and with love, but speak the truth in love, right? As the Bible says. So you have to really kind of be, well, this is a premium service, and we would love to serve you, but we again completely understand if it's out of your budget. And it's really funny, right? Too, because when you start to kind of get in their mindset, if you start to kind of say, "Oh yeah, like I know it's probably it is kind of expensive," now you're agreeing with you're actually devaluing yourself,
Yeah.
right? Again, if I go to a Rolls Royce again salesman and say it's ludicrous, like how do you guys charge $500,000? And they're going to be like,
There you.
Rolls Royce. That's all they're going to say to you. It's a Rolls, like it's not a Hyundai. If anybody has a Hyundai out there, listen, I had a Hyundai Sonata as well, but it's not a Hyundai, right? It's a Rolls Royce. So there's not really, now the salesman at Rolls Royce might even be a little bit more straightforward with you than I would be. But, again, it's being empathetic, that squishy bun on top, empathize, give them the real truth, and then empathize again, give them a little bit of a soft landing, right? Just, hey, completely understand if it's out of your budget. We would love to serve you at any point. We're here for you whenever you're ready. And if that day ever comes, we'd love to serve you. You never know. They might win the lottery next year and hire you every week. You never know what's going to happen, right? So.
Yeah, I did have one of my clients. He sent me a text and he's like, "Man, this food is so good. As soon as we win the lottery," and he was on a group chat with his wife and us, and he's like, "As soon as I win the lottery, I'm gonna hire you to cook for us full time." And I'm thinking, but then his wife is like, "What? You don't even play the lottery?"
Well, he better go start buying tickets.
Yeah, right.
No, that's awesome. Great question, Chef. Do you have any other questions before I ask my last question to you guys?
Did you have any?
I I would like to ask. So somebody just is starting out, doesn't know how to start a personal chef business. How would you go about it? Doing that?
That's a great question. I mean, first of all, you have to probably mentally prepare yourself to say, I'm stepping into entrepreneurship, and business is not necessarily easy. It's a lot easier when you have help, of course, just like anything in life. A coach or a mentor would really help you, but you also have to mentally prepare, like, I'm starting a business. A lot of people have heard my phrase that it's not a phrase because I'm taking a quote that Thomas Jefferson said, but so I'm not taking credit for his quote, but I quote him all the time when he says, with great freedom comes great responsibility. A lot of chefs want to be their own boss. They want to start a business. They want to be an entrepreneur. They need to also level up that it takes a lot of responsibility. The responsibility is on them, on their shoulders to carry it. And it's going to be tough mentally. You're going to have to learn skills that you've never learned before, because a lot of us can cook great food as chefs, but you also have to have other knives in your knife kit. You can't just have your chef's knife in the sense of business wise, like just knowing how to cook. You need all the other knives in your toolkit, and they need to be sharp. Sales skills, marketing skills, communication skills, leadership skills. You have to understand those skills as well. But for me to start out, if someone was looking to start, I would say it's mentally prepare yourself. And then also look at possibly having help and getting help from either a mentor, a coach, someone who can truly help you and give you kind of a plan and help and guide you. Which actually, it's funny you asked me that question, because my last question was going to be like to ask you guys what advice you would have for anybody looking to actually not really just start into it, but break into the personal chef industry. I was going to ask you guys kind of the same question from your perspective. So I'm going to flip it back on you guys too to answer the same question.
I think that if you really want to get out there and get going. By the way, yes, it was you. You're my mentor and my coach, and we did talk for like 3 years. It could have been a little more than that, but 3 years. And it wasn't because I didn't want to do it, but I just didn't have the investment. And I know that you probably talk to a lot of people that they're like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this someday. And I kept saying, I'm going to do this. I'm going to hire you. I want you. I need you. And, I just knew it'd be a breakthrough in my business. And that's how much I believed in it. That's how much I wanted to succeed at this business. And so, yeah, 3 years later, there was finally the ability to be able to hire you as my coach and my mentor. And it went from zero to, I think in the second month after just starting our coaching calls, we had like $7,000 for the month. I
Wow.
mean, booked, and between our regular, and then people were calling me just out of the blue. I wasn't even advertising yet, and then people would recommend me that I don't know, I have never cooked for them, and it's just like, so the number one thing that I think that you should do for yourself is invest in a mentor and a coach,
Mm.
and vet them for sure. You don't have to take 3 years to do it, but make sure that you're getting somebody who's legit and somebody that cares. Somebody has the values that you want to have as a chef, and I think that's number one for sure.
Well, thank you so much. Well, man, I really appreciate you guys being on the podcast today. And I'm really excited for what's to come with Culinary Indulgence, your business. And again, thank you guys so much for sharing. I appreciate you guys being on the show. And what I'm going to do is really just spread the news of this podcast and make sure that you guys are tuning in and listening. And we'd love to even have you on the podcast. But again, I want to thank you guys so much for being on today, Chef Johnny, Chef Cinnamon. And any last words before we'll let you guys go and end the podcast today?
We love you.
We
We
love
love
you,
all you
Chef.
guys, and especially
Oh,
you, Chef. Mwah, Chef
thank
Kid.
you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Well, back to you. And thank you guys so much for tuning in to the Chefpreneur podcast. We're excited. We'll be back next week with another chef. And also keep an eye out here. So make sure that you're subscribing to the podcast, you're tuning in. And we just can't wait to serve you guys. If you guys need any help with starting or growing a personal chef business, we have amazing resources down below in the description of this video once we post it. Or if you're listening to this podcast, in the description of the podcast as well. We'd love to just give you any kind of resources that you need to start or grow your personal chef business. All right. Until next time, we'll talk to you guys later.